Hello and welcome back. And first of all, apologize for the clickbait title because Helm diff is actually not lying. It just doesn't answer the question what I'm interested about. So let's imagine that I have a Helm chart, and usually with the Helm chart I have multiple versions which are deployed one by one. And when I would like to deploy a new version from the Helm chart, what I would be interested about is just the difference between the current state of the cluster and the Helm chart. That what will be changed and what's in the cluster compared to the Helm chart. But instead of this, Helm chart just compares the charts with the previous versions which are saved in the cluster, which doesn't really help me because usually I just commit all the Helm charts anyway, so I can just do a git diff. It doesn't really answer the question that what's in the cluster really, and compared to the chart, what is the difference? Is some local changes and so on. So let's check these in more details. So I have a Kubernetes cluster here. Nothing here. I have a node, which is fine. And I also have a Helm chart. It's extremely simple. I even don't use any templates. It just deploys one Kubernetes deployment. So let me install it as my server. Done. Helm list shows it. I have a running pod, which is nice. So let's modify the deployment. So I'm just deleting this label, which doesn't make sense anyway. And if I do an Helm diff upgrade my server, it's supposed to show that, foobar will be deleted. So I can just do an upgrade and it will be deleted. So what about if eventually somebody edits the deployment? Server. Well, I can edit it and add, for example, an additional environment. So let's say I have a foo bar environment name. And it's supposed to be restarted, right, with the new environment variable setup. And meantime, the deployment can be changed as well. So let's say I have this foobar again and do a diff. So what I see is only the foobar, which is the difference between the current Helm chart and the previous version of the Helm chart, which is saved. But it doesn't show that this Helm chart has a difference. And actually, there is a local change in the deployment, and there is an environment variable. So it seems like that we don't have an environment variable, but in fact, we have one in the cluster. And unfortunately, it's very, very hard to find this one. So if I get the secrets, what I can see is there are new secrets which contains the previous versions. And that's what's happening here. The secrets contains all the previous manifests and they just compare it. And I couldn't really sure that was in the cluster, even if I applied the Helm chart. So there is one interesting parameter which might help us, which is the three-way merge. Three-way merge, yeah. So this can be used, and it looks like something what we are looking for, because if three-way merge, then probably one way is the state in the cluster, the other leg is the previous version, and we would like to just somehow merge it together with the change what I have between the latest two versions. So let's check how does it work. So let's try to do a Helm diff my server dot Helm diff upgrade my server three-way merge. Well, it is still the same. A new foobar will be added. So let's try to do a deployment and put a new environment variable to here. And Q and X. Still, it didn't help us, right? There is a Q and X which will be added, but interestingly, the foobar is added. There is no foobar in the templates, right? We didn't. It just detected that it is in the cluster, right? So this is how does it work, but actually this diff is still not what I'm looking for, because it doesn't alert me that there is some no Helm chart related version in the cluster. And you can say that it's not a big deal, because usually we shouldn't modify the cluster manually. And yeah, I agree, usually we shouldn't, but sometimes there are cases when we need some very small change very quickly in case of emergency, where we would like to just keep the path of the GitOps to commit something and do all the big circle. Also, it's a security problem, right? Then somebody can just inject something to there, and it's very hard to spot. We expect that we will see all of the changes, but we don't. So what is the solution? First of all, if you have such an option, don't use Helm. I have another video about Helm, and I try to explain why I think that the abstraction of the Helm is not the best one for Kubernetes. Second, I should admit that I don't have a very good solution yet, so if you have any suggestion, just please let me know. I have some experiments with server-side rendering, kube control, diff, or with Argo CD, which has a custom diff tool. So it can just run the Helm chart or customize or anything else, and it tries to detect the changes. And my experience is that usually it does it slightly better than the Helm itself, and it can show some differences what happened compared to the state of the cluster, but still it doesn't show all the differences what I'm interested about. So sometimes some custom modification in the cluster was not visible in the web UI. But probably we need to discuss the Argo CD in another video, because it's a way bigger topic, even if it's still very interesting. So see you next time. And until that, don't believe what Helm diff says.